There are organisations that say they care for people and leaders who say they care, but the way they lead can actually be, effectively, they can be bullying people. My experience in working with you and seeing you run the team is there's some real value in being clear with your team where you're like, I expect really good results and I'm going to hold you accountable to it. And at times that means we're going to have some uncomfortable conversations. Do they feel like they're just part of this big machine that's producing money? Or do they feel like they're part of an organisation that is producing money to make a difference? The doublespeak is the issue, I think, actually, that if an organisation says we care about people and the environment, but actually all they care about is their share price,
100%.
What's the difference between manipulation and influence? Using what I'm doing without directly telling, without forcing you, I'm using my language and my behaviour to get the outcome I want. I think more broadly that leadership is about.
Hey, Lawrence here. Welcome to Business Beats. Today we're talking to Dave Whitefield. Full disclosure, I know Dave. We've worked together in the past. You had a training company.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't deal with you though. I dealt with Tim.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tim. Tim DeGroot, great
And
guy.
Ange.
And Ange. Shout out to Ange.
Christmas party next week for Ange.
Hey, Christmas party. Hey, Ange, can I get an invitation, please? I probably won't turn up, but just to be invited is great. I guess, so you've been a founder, director. Now you're working for yourself as a consultant, right? And I think the last conversation that we had, we spoke a lot about leadership, right? So in your consultancy, you're delivering leadership to some pretty big companies in Australia. Yep, mining companies, construction companies, high-risk industries.
Yep.
So that's probably all the context I'll give it for now, because we can get into that as we talk. But I want to dive into leadership. So we were just having a conversation before we started recording about, and I think someone said to you, military guy, right? Said to you, there's no definition for leadership.
Yeah. Well, I think it came from the company he's working for, or like, we want leadership training. But then
what does that mean?
Yeah. And in that case, I think it came from a good spot of we want to support leaders, like they weren't telling. But then, like a lot of, you go looking for it, and there's 20 different brands of, what's leadership mean?
Well, I think companies have that perception of what they think it is, right? And are they right or wrong? They've probably got some elements, right? But they've probably got a lot of them wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
And I would, like my main bias is coming through culture. So that's the other thing is my philosophical view, my paradigm is through a social psychological lens. So I'll always look at it organisationally and culturally, as in, how are we supporting leaders and how do leaders influence culture?
What about commercially though? That's critical, right?
Tell me more about, what do you mean, like by commercially?
Well, there's always an integral link to what is the company trying to achieve, and if it's based heavily on the P&L and the balance sheet, how do you weave it into that?
So there's really good models that, and so actually that's a good point. Like my bias would be to sort of look at it and say, culturally, what are the shared beliefs and values amongst the organisation, and then that will influence the way leaders are leading. So, you can have. So here's an example. Let's cut right to it. Because my main area is still typically around that safety and risk. I mean, I'm more risk now, but safety is where I do a lot of work.
Yeah.
There are organisations that say they care for people and leaders who say they care, but the way they lead can actually be effectively they can be bullying people.
Are they bullying people though, or is it perceived to be that way?
What's the difference?
Wow.
So no, I'll be really
get it.
no. But this is it's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
And again, I'd say like culture is one of the things that can influence that. So I know you want to talk about leadership, and I want to get there with culture, and I think it's a similar like people. It's one of these things that's easy for people to describe. So if you said, "What's the leadership like around here?" People would have a subjective.
Oh, they would say it's awesome.
Oh no, here they would. Yeah, correct. Yeah. But they like it's linked to. They go, "Oh, it's supportive. It's great. It's positive." Like same as culture, right?
Yeah.
It's toxic. It's corrosive. It's undermining.
Yeah.
So people can describe it really easily because they feel it. But if you said, "Could you define it?"
Yeah. Yeah, they couldn't.
They couldn't, right? Now, and that's a dilemma that organisations need to tackle if you want to work on it meaningfully. Like you're working on it no matter what, but you're working on it by accident most of the time.
Yeah.
So if you've got a really clear kind of our business is all about the share price and the market and what the market values, then you will typically encourage leaders that behave that way. And therefore, if you've got people who are fundamentally not directly contributing to the market value, then they're going to be out. And you're going to drive behaviour that contributes to your value.
So yeah, I get that. Right? I think that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I just said to you before, I think it's the leadership that should be responsible for the people that are responsible for the result. Right?
Yeah.
Because leaders aren't connected to the result. Well, look,
Yeah.
they are, but they're responsible
Indirectly,
for it.
yeah. That's
Indirectly,
right. Well, that's
right?
like the orchestra. They're facing the other way, right?
Correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. So, so how do you quantify that though? Because we know that that's the case, but it's so fucking hard to actually quantify it. And then how do you weave that into the culture of the leadership team?
Yeah.
To execute against.
I think part of it is actually trying to call it out and say, well, for example, that would be my thing of going, what do you think leadership looks like here? And actually not leaving it up to, well, it's the vibe. Like actually saying to us, leadership is about, and then you could do that construct, right? Leadership is about helping people get to that result that they didn't think they could, or, helping them get beyond that. And we've got leaders and managers, and sometimes you do both. But I think part of it is actually taking it out of this vibey that's out there.
So you're saying leadership is the result for the individual that connects to the company result? Both, right?
Yeah. Hang on. That's a good question. I'm just reflecting on
because here's what I think. I think
okay.
there's two ways to look at it. I think there's company results and then there's personal results, right? So people who work inside a company, when you want to talk about culture, is that they have their own lens on that, right?
Yeah.
And they want to be, especially the younger generation, like I just said before, they want to be part of something special.
Yeah.
They want to feel like their employer values them, that they're learning, and that they're contributing.
Yeah.
So that sometimes is just about them.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's a new thing. I think what's changed is our acceptance of that.
Yeah.
I think people...
I get that.
And
I get that.
Earlier generations, there was more stoicism built in, where it was like you just sucked it up and you just did it.
Well, there's the door. Use it, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
And so it's a fair point. I think people always want to belong. People are fundamentally social. But what's changed is, our tolerance towards feeling belonging and, that shift. But it's a fair point, I think. Because I was thinking then... Sorry, and I know we're sort of backtracking a bit. I think more broadly that leadership is about influence, I guess, is what I'd say. But we were going down a little path before when we were chatting, and this is where things like ethics would come into it, which is that bit where I was saying you can have the contrasting behaviour of saying I care, but your behaviour is not. Your behaviour is actually making it worse. That, I ask groups when I'm talking to leadership groups, what's the difference between manipulation and influence? Like it's still using my language and behaviour.
Persuasion.
Yeah, right. I'm using what I'm doing without directly without forcing you. I'm using my language and my behaviour to get the outcome I want, and manipulation has this negative frame. Yeah. Influence has a positive frame. For me, it's the same, it's the same tools that we use, and some use them accidentally and some use them on purpose. And with intention, but that's also why the ethics is there, which is why I think, you can talk about, well, not only why are we leading, but what are we trying to get to? What's the end goal here? And that's company values and culture. And it's... Do
you think, the whole company mission statement, we call it an MTP, which is a massive transformative purpose, right? It's like we're moving the company into what we call an EXO or an exponential organizational model, right?
Yeah.
And modalities inside that. So we have to anchor everything to an MTP, massive transformative purpose. Do you think that's critical for like people who are working, say, as a receptionist or in an admin role in the company?
Yeah.
Because I know it's really important for leaders. I get that. But for leaders to manage that down through the team, like how do you get the team to buy into that?
It's a good point. It probably, it's probably more important
don't.
for some. Well, that's right. Yeah, I do think people want to know. Sorry, not want to. I think it helps when people understand how they're part of the big picture.
Yeah.
Like, remember, it was one of the things I read in a leadership book years ago. Is this idea of every single person? It seems to help if they understand how what they're doing contributes to the big picture. But I think then, what's the big picture? So, do they feel like they're just part of this big machine that's producing money, or do they feel like they're part of an organisation that is producing money to make a difference? And that's where I'd come back to saying the doublespeak is the issue, I think, actually, that if an organisation says we care about people and the environment, but actually all they care about is their share price.
100%.
I get that. So that's that big mission statement is critical where there's a genuine alignment to it.
I'll hit that just a little bit because I think some people don't understand, depending on the level of the person in the organization, I get that, is that, but the P&L is really important because without that, the product can't be delivered. And if it's a great, sustainable product that can help people, well, then you need to pay wages and support people to support their family.
Yeah.
That we live in an economic planet.
Yeah.
It's critical, right?
So
they cross that line of soapbox, right? I'm standing on a soapbox now saying you're making it all about the money, but in actual fact, maybe they're not, but it's just perceived to be that way.
So if it's perceived that way, is it because that's the truth and actually, the leaders are not making that link, or there actually is doublespeak that we think we're making a big difference, but actually what we're doing is paying shareholders? That's the risk with some of there's some big companies that kind of put it out there that they're about people and about the world, but all the vibe at the moment is it's just about dividends. So it could be that they need to manage that message better. It also could be like, if that's all you are, then that's okay, right?
Look, I actually think it's okay to have a job to earn money to support your family.
Yeah.
And you don't need to buy into all the stuff, right?
But if you want people to, but that's what you're saying before, like there are more and more people who want to buy into it, right?
Yeah, I was saying that. Yeah.
I think that doublespeak, like my experience in working with you and seeing you run the team is there's some real value in being clear with your team where you're like, I expect really good results and I'm going to hold you accountable to it. And at times that means we're going to have some uncomfortable conversations. Now, I think what happens is people go, oh yeah, whatever. And then turns out you have some uncomfortable conversations and they don't love it. But you were being really clear with them up front. But it goes to how they often don't believe what's said until it happens to them.
Until it happens, I get that.
And that's how you can self-select out, right? Like it wouldn't do me. I don't love that environment. But I think there's value in, and I hear you being really clear with it.
It's tough, right? I'm going through this. I've changed a lot of my management style. My leadership style, by the way, where I'm going through this stage of kind candor, right? So being candid, but wrapping a better way to deliver it to people, right? Because I think some people wrap, I would just want to be honest and transparent. Yeah, but you're also being mean.
Yeah, that's the bullying bit I'm saying.
That's the bullying.
That's the bit where companies say, you made a mistake that resulted in somebody getting hurt. And because our commitment is to sort of zero getting hurt, well, then you've got to go. It's like, that's not the most, is that caring for people in that without a bit more context?
This is super interesting, this topic, right? Because I think there's so many ways to perceive it. I remember having a conversation. We had a marketing manager here, Grace. She's amazing, by the way. Hey, shout out to Grace. Let's tag Grace.
I remember Grace.
Yeah, that's right. You do. Yeah. She was here when you were working with us. Yeah. She had an instance with one of her team members, and that team member said to her, "This office can be toxic sometimes." And I was like,
right.
Come on, I think that's bullshit. But then as I thought about that more deeply, her perception of it was, right, not necessarily that it was, but her perception. So we have to take responsibility for that. So something in there has gone wrong. So I've taken responsibility for comments like that, and I think that's probably the second or third time I've heard that.
Right.
It's because, when you're a young startup, you're pushing as hard as you can, and I think you lose that candidness, right?
I think too there's some models that predict this, some business growth models. I might have shared it before that almost predict in that startup mode. It is a different vibe. There's so much energy around it, and it's interesting. People can be much more committed to that outcome, and so they're like on board with you. They get what you're doing. And inevitably, you then start reaching a size where you have to bring in some systems and process and bureaucracy and other people. And that's where you hear people make the comment of, it's not like it used to be around here. And suddenly now you've got maybe a new person who comes in who thinks this is just going to be like another job. And then they've got, it's still in startup mode a bit. And they're like, whoa, what's going on? And that's what I'd simply say that's that cultural change happening that's almost inevitable as organisations shift from being more like it's all about the individual and innovative down to more sort of, in fact, there's models that predict this, that sort of more that democratised family into bureaucracy, and that's, it seems to be normal or typical, but it's, it's when you still talk as if it's over here and the organisation culture is over here. It's that double speak.
So it's growth pains, right?
Yeah,
As the company grows.
So when you said you've changed the way you give feedback,
oh shit,
are you willing to give an example of what you can reflect on?
Yeah, I am. Like I used to, part of my ethos, right,
Yeah.
or what I was influenced by my parents is, is work ethic, right? That's
Yeah.
something I've anchored my personality on, which I think is something great, but I think you can take it too far.
Cool.
Because not everyone is going to have the work ethic that I do and work the 15, 17 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So
right?
that's expectations, though, not just work ethic.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's right. So you grab that expectation that I have, and what I do is I place that on people.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Welcome to being human.
Welcome to being human.
Yeah.
So I would razz them a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I think in that when you're having a little bit of sarcastic, satirical fun with them, that's where they perceive the toxicity sits, right?
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore.
Right.
So what I try to do now is use people aren't going to believe me when I say this, but empathy.
That's okay. I get you can be empathic.
Yeah. So I'm using empathy as a leadership superpower, or a vertical to ensure that communication is not only understood but it's received well.
Yeah. And is it sort of a mechanical thing, or how do you
It is at the moment.
No, yeah, right.
No,
that's okay. It's a practice thing, right?
And I've been on this for over a month now, and I think I'm getting pretty good at it. And here's the thing: is people really appreciate it, and I appreciate that they appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue to do it.
There's a whole sort of brand of that. Oh, I'm just trying to think of the languaging of it, but essentially there's a sort of whole brand called Humble Inquiry.
Yeah.
So a guy called Edgar Schein, this little tiny book called Humble Inquiry, and that's essentially, it's starting from a position of humility.
Yeah.
Of you're genuinely, and like in my head, it often what I try and do is things like, I don't know why they did it, but it must have made sense to them.
Yeah.
So my initial agenda is from curiosity.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm doing culture and leadership stuff.
Yeah.
I'm talking to leaders saying, this is not an all the time. There are times when, as a leader, it's totally appropriate to go, I never want to see that again. And somebody's trying to explain it, and you're like, no, it's unacceptable, don't do it. Or they bring you work, and you're like, this is not up to scratch. And you're thinking, wonder what went wrong. And you go, you know what, I think you can do better. There's still appropriate, I guess, but there's also times when, I guess, the little voice in your head is like, what were they thinking? How did they do that? What's going on? So you've got curiosity in your head. You're just probably grumpy at the same time. That you sit within that and really pick it up and come from a position of genuine curiosity. But I talk about it as a strategy.
To me, that's that component of empathy, right?
Yeah,
so that's the vehicle that delivers it.
Yeah.
In my head, I want to punch them in the face.
I got it. Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
But what comes out of my mouth is completely different
so
to what I'm thinking.
I talk about it as part of your toolkit, your leader toolkit. And it's like, so here's an example of what I would actually, you mentioned again before, like nearly all of us become leaders accidentally based on what we've experienced and seen in others. Like we don't often do a lot of technical leadership training, which is one of the issues.
Yeah.
So I ask leaders and supervisors, if you ask somebody, do you understand? Will they say yes, even if they don't understand?
100% they will.
So I'm like, we've got to put aside.
That's ego, right?
Yeah, well, it might be, or it could be conformity bias. Yep. If you're in a group of people and you say, does everyone understand?
Yeah.
Just
you don't look stupid.
There's some social psychology going on called conformity bias.
That clan mentality and
also,
and
you may have been accidentally teaching somebody to say yes. So you say to somebody, hey, did you understand that? And they go, oh, actually, no, I need it more. And your non-conscious reaction is like, ugh, right? You are teaching them in every interaction to say yes and deal with the shit later.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm like, it's not something you're intentionally doing, but you could be accidentally teaching them. So I'm just saying sit with that and go, you can judge the morality of whether somebody should say, I don't understand or not. Yeah. But we've just got to the point where we all know they will say yes. Also, there's another possibility. People will say they understand and not. Like, as in people will think they've understood and gotten it wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm simply going, as a strategy, don't ask it. Never ask, do you understand? We've just talked about the fact that it's a useless question. Yeah, sorry, hang on. If your goal is, I want to be confident we're on the same page, which I think is as close as you get as a leader. You're never 100%, but I want to be confident we're on the same page. Then never ask, do you understand? You got to change your question style.
So what do you replace that with?
Okay, cool. So I would literally use language like,
because I actually say that.
Yeah, no, I know.
In some instances, I say, does that make sense? Do you understand?
Okay, well, that's a better question.
Yeah.
But what I'd say is people will still probably go,
Yeah. With their high voice. Yeah.
Well, what's happening in their head? They are literally going, "What's the best answer to give?" And the best answer.
Let me pause you there for a second.
Cool.
So that means that you've created now I'm going to jump into another field, right? I'm just going to pivot slightly.
Make sure we come back to how to tackle that, by the way, because I do have some examples.
Because I think this is important. Because if the culture dictates to them that they're too scared to tell you the truth, well, you have a problem.
Correct.
And that's going to happen all the time.
And by the way, people will come into that too, because if their last manager was like that, then they'll bring that in. Like you said, we think everyone thinks like us. When somebody arrives here, they assume every manager is like.
I don't think anyone's that smart, Dave.
No.
Anyway, let's move on.
So, so in that moment, I suggest that leaders use language like literally things like, "Hey, let's make sure we're on the same page."
Yeah. So
even that languaging is leveling language.
Yeah.
Rather than "do you," it's "let's make sure." It's like starting language with "I'm concerned about," rather than "did you," or like if it's about a risk thing or a safety thing, rather than saying "that's unsafe" or "you're wrong," I'd be like, "I'm concerned we haven't hit the mark."
What about remove yourself from the post context and say, if you need any support, speak to your team around you and get out of there?
Sure, yeah, as a strategy.
Right, as a strategy.
So these are all great now, and then you've got to create the meaning that they just got to think you believe it. But that's a good example of going, "Hey, look, I know sometimes you might not be able to come to me for an answer, so it's cool if you check in with your team, right?
Yeah,
that's okay. Yeah. So by the way, I'd be like, I just want to come back to that classic example of you just given information.
Yeah,
I'd be like, let's make sure we're on the same page before we go. Talk me through the first thing you're going to do.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah,
that will give you the best confidence, or otherwise, that they've actually received information. For example, or if somebody's brought you work and it's not, you're like, how did they get?
So you're definitely saying, so can you explain to me what we just went through?
I'm saying, but I'm framing it as I want to make sure we're on the same page. So hidden in that is a level that it could have been me. I want to make sure we're on the same page. There's a possibility that I'm going to take some responsibility
for a leader. Right?
I might not have got it across right.
100%.
Now, by the way, if you do this 10 times in a row and the person is like not getting it, and everyone else does, it could be the person.
Yeah.
Right? That's okay as well. It doesn't, and it's it's about the humble, it's about the empathy, and I'd say that humble inquiry or curiosity, getting to a point of actually learning first and then being able to respond.
Yeah.
So, hey, talk me through the first thing, or look, let's make sure we're on the same page. Just walk me through the key points.
Yeah.
And it is that reflective listening. And at the same time, you can use question strategies like, have we missed anything? Just before we go, let's make sure we're all good on the same page. Is there anything I've missed for you? And in that questioning, you're priming that there might be things I miss. And, it can be that thing of in a group setting, they may not speak up, but, sometimes that's afterwards. They'll come and see you and go, look, I didn't want to say anything, but since you asked, it's a little bit about like there's sort of models around entertained doubt or chronic unease, that we want to offset overconfidence, that everything's under control, which can happen when we go, all good, any questions? Excellent, we've got this team. We want them to be positive.
Yeah, you do, but it's about the result, right?
Yeah.
So how do you, I always think, and I love self-responsibility. I think taking responsibility for the outcome is great, but employees and people inside that group and that infrastructure still have to take responsibility for the result.
Yeah.
So,
so somebody's brought you some stuff or hasn't hit the result, and I don't think we've hit the result here.
Yeah.
And then it's something like, walk me through this. What are your thoughts? And you're really trying to, the more you do it, the more they'll believe that you're interested. Because for a while, if you're a month in, it'll still freak them out, that questioning style.
I still want to have a deep conversation about empathy.
I'm interested what your thoughts are and what that means to you. Walk me through that a bit.
Yeah. It's a good question, because I think there's varying degrees of definition.
I'll be really transparent with you. I sense that it's kind of a process, not a thing. Not like when you're saying, I'm trying to have empathy.
Yeah.
I think you're just trying to engage with people differently.
Yeah, I think you could be right. Hey, you've got to walk before you can run. Right?
Yeah, no, I got it. You practice. So what do you thought? What does empathy mean?
Look, I think 100%. I think so. I'm starting with a process, and through that process, I hope to learn, what that means for me personally, right? And probably psychologically.
Yeah.
So, but what I've noticed is, and it's candid empathy as well,
Yeah.
right? So I'm still to the point like I normally am, but I guess I just deliver it differently, right? And sometimes I think that's empathy. I don't know whether that's.
Well, have you got what if you had to define it? If somebody said, what do you mean by? What do you think the Webster's dictionary?
Now I feel like I'm being interviewed here.
No, well,
someone bring in the couch. No, yeah, that's a good question.
Because
let me do this. Let me talk about the result, right?
Okay.
Let me talk about what I noticed is that even on my own management team, oh my God, they're going to watch this, but
well, you said they were happier.
Yeah, I think so.
That can't be a bad thing.
Yeah. Look, I'm still, I have to be focused on results as a founder, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and I'm not, but here's what I'm noticing, because I didn't answer you before, is that the results are becoming more consistent.
Cool. Okay.
So it's not doing that.
No.
But what it's doing is it's doing that nice curve, right?
Yeah.
Because it's about giving people, allowing them to take responsibility and make decisions for their own personal results.
But that hasn't changed. You've always tried to do that.
Yeah, but I think the way that with all sincerity, the way that I delivered it was probably pretty harsh. It was like, get it done. You're employed to do a job, just go and do it. Yeah. Now, if they don't know how to do that job, then go, hey, I know how to do this.
Yeah,
so
cool.
it goes
back to that thing of
back to that conversation.
How do they feel about going?
How do they feel?
You're holding me to a standard, but you haven't necessarily supported me to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, and sometimes people. Now, I never think this, by the way, but some people think this is that, but they're employed to do that job. They should just know how to do that.
Oh no!
And my response is, in most cases, that's actually not the case.
Yeah, and you've always been, I think, great on that. By the way, is that that thing of like how are we supporting the team to do it? I actually think you've been great on it, but it's an interesting insight that could the way you end up driving people just put a block in there is all of you want to support them, but they're like, can I actually ask for that help?
Yeah,
that's probably maybe what you're seeing as a difference there.
I think that's accurate, and I think people perceive that as being micromanaged, right? Which everyone hates, by the way. No one wants to be micromanaged. I think there's some people that need to, but it's allowing them to take responsibility for their own journey,
micromanaged
right?
can be on the outcome or method, right? Too.
I guess so.
So as in you could check in with somebody once an hour and say, how many calls have you made?
Yeah.
Versus this is the way I want you to make the call, and then listen in, and then go, I want you to do this. So there's two spheres of micromanagement.
Okay, well let me do this, right? This might give it some context. So I'll create a sample. This is not a true sample. I'm just gonna sort of paraphrase this out a little bit. So you go to the sales manager and go, hey, you didn't meet your budget last month.
Yeah.
If you don't meet it this month, you're going to be in trouble. Now apply some empathy.
Yeah.
You didn't meet your budget last month. What's going on?
Yeah.
Is everything okay? What can I do to help?
Yeah.
See the difference?
Yeah.
So that
I see the difference.
So that's pretty.
So do they, right?
Yeah. So that's what I'm applying now. Where normally I would go, hey mate, you got to meet your budget next month.
So here's a question for you, right?
Yep.
Is this? I'm just trying to think about my questioning, because on one hand you could be really cynical and say you've simply found a different way of asking a question to get the result you wanted.
I'm very conscious about it though. I'm very considered.
Right. Okay.
So,
because here's what for me, empathy is literally that kind of walk a mile, right?
It's not reactive.
No, but empathy is like walk a mile, right? Walk a mile in someone else's shoes.
100%.
So, unless you can actually do that, the only way to do it is through them telling you stories about what they're going through, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's, I think, where it comes from a genuine, a position of, and I think that's that humble inquiry. You're open to, what do I need to do? Have I set you up? Are there other issues? With the view that, you're also not hiding from the fact that if they go, no, you've given me all the support and there's actually nothing, then it's like, okay, well, you're not up for it.
Yeah.
That's a potential outcome as well. But at least you've gotten there. It should feel fairer, even though they don't like it. People will feel listened to, and it's a fairer result. So it's an interesting thing from like a culture point of view that when people talk about like un-Australian or whatever, I think that's that fairness thing. And one of the things that people, I think, sits with that is you've had a chance to have your say in a meaningful way. That people don't love being held accountable, but they find it much easier when at least they feel like they've been listened to, and they've had a chance to go, well, actually, this is the issue going on for me, and or somebody's like, well, actually, my family situation's changed and I can't do the amount of hours that I originally, that this job originally needed, right? Still doesn't mean you're going to change the way they work, but at least now they know, and you're coming from the. That's what that strategy uncovers.
Yeah, look, and it is to a point of process, right? It's like, okay, well, if you need to go home sick, I'm going to razz you on it. Like that's what I would do, right?
Yeah.
Now, are you okay? Look, I think you should go home.
Yep.
See the difference in that, and that has a huge impact on culture. Huge impact.
And I think that's some stuff around people start giving discretionary effort, and they'll, especially that's a little thing of somebody's like, well, I'll give that time back and I'll do some stuff at home to catch up for that.
Yeah. Or it's the opposite to that, using the first scenarios where I'm going to work hard when you watch me, and when you're not, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, and that's I don't know. They don't love the job, right? That's just
or maybe
work to rule almost type.
And then I think of these guys, like these companies like Apple, right? Who, when you talk about culture and leadership and trying to frame that out for an employee, they are leveraging brand, right? So they're a company that people want to go and work for.
Yeah.
Where companies like us, who are smaller companies and organizations, we're trying to find people, bring them in, and create a culture that they can then identify.
Yeah.
So there's a big gap between that.
I think that but that's more like when you're in startup mode. So when you're in startup and you're attracting people, there's a clearer link to and to be honest, sometimes it's like, wow, I just want to work with Lawrence. Like that energy, and we're on the path. And if you said, where are you heading? People
that happens all the time, by the way.
Yeah, I got it. Right. But people would be like, where are you going with the company? They go, I don't know. It's just so exciting.
But no one goes, I really want to go and work for BHP. Correct.
Hang on, there might be some grads and stuff. So some people coming into the industry might be like...
Is that because they pay well, though?
It might be because it represents a solid job, but they're not... They're very rarely going to be like, I want to work for BHP because they've got such great vision and values.
Yeah.
Like they're not connected to that. Yeah. Whereas the advantage that something like Apple has is it's, innovation and product, and people use it. Like people don't use coal directly, whereas people have Apple products.
Yeah.
So it's a good example to play with around what's different and again, like how you communicate that. Yeah. So I think one of the challenges that organisations have is as they get bigger, how do you get this consistency of what does the right decision look like? Like what's the right thing to do when somebody's got a discretionary point of view? Like, and that is influenced by leaders and managers. And so what companies try and do is sort of set values, right? And they go, well, this is how we want to be and this is how we want to see ourselves. Yeah. And then you might describe what that looks like, and then you hope that managers are acting that way. That's the whole sort of big picture stuff. But then you've got managers, like how do they actually do it? How do they communicate? Can they ask the questions in the right way?
Okay, can we go there? So how do you do that? So what's for entrepreneurs and founders watching this, what are things that you can do for your leadership team? Like say maybe during the course of a year, right? In terms of execution, like how would you?
It's a good question.
Because it's tough, right? Like, is it like a quarterly? You got to take everyone out of the business, and you got to practically discuss X and X and X.
I think that as you're growing, it is, and this is my cultural answer. Then would be, culture's about shared beliefs. So I think you do need to try and get people together to maintain that this is what we're still about. This is where we're heading.
Yeah. So mission, massive transformative purpose,
which early days is like based within the leader. Like I've done some stuff in medium-sized businesses where the culture of the organisation, as in the way people think about what's acceptable and what we're here, is still fundamentally the founder, and it's still anchored to them. And you can't really do any culture change stuff while, that'll be here, right? Like
it is sort of here, I think.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So
as long as the founder's not an arsehole, I guess.
Well, no, as long as you're not trying to get people to behave differently from what the founder would or would expect. So, like I had an example of work I did at a medium-sized business where the founder was still
How many
in the
people?
business.
Sorry, just get context. 30 people?
It was probably a couple of hundred, I think.
Oh, okay. Just medium-sized business.
Well, we were 50. But baseline, we were 50, and that was still small. I suppose. Okay, yeah. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
But what I mean
is, so 200.
They had a few people, but the founder was still really involved in it, and there was a little behaviour of being late for meetings, right?
Yeah.
And the founder would get annoyed by it and was trying to like, you guys have to come up, it shits me to tears when you're late for meetings. But he would be late for meetings and he'd blow off meetings.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So what you're saying is you've got to practice what you preach.
Yeah. Or not hold people accountable to it. Because the problem was
hold people accountable to it.
The implications of that is it pissed people off even more that they would get in trouble for something. Whereas if he's like, you know what, it's the way we roll and we're going to have to be flexible about holding people accountable to that. It's the doublespeak that I was saying.
Yeah.
So that's one thing is, being clearer on this is what we expect and this is what a good decision.
If you took that one instance, what you just said then, I bet you most leaders are like that.
So everybody is to some degree because we only see ourselves the way we are.
Yeah.
And that's why when I'm talking about leadership stuff, I give the analogy of a parent is like you are always on every single thing you're doing. So I said before, right? You say to somebody, do you understand that? And they go, no, not really. And you're like, that subtle reaction you're teaching, right? That when you say to the team, hey, look, sometimes the answer might not be in me. Sometimes the answer is amongst your team, right? But then if you come out and they're chatting and you're like, what are you guys wasting time doing?
Yeah.
And they're like,
I know,
hang on, you told us to come and do this.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying there
it's
is
common though. I think that's common. I think most leaders are like that.
Being aware that every single thing, so that's partly the leadership development is that realization that every single thing I'm doing, and then you can do it with more intent. So this humble inquiry is a strategy. It's not you don't have to be okay with everything in the world. But sometimes it's like, seek first to understand, then to be understood. It's one of the 7 habits.
But
it's a strategy. It's not, you've got to do it, right?
It's funny when I look at that through that lens, right? I think empathy for me is not actually emotional. What it is, it's practical execution, right?
Yeah.
It's just about framing things and delivering them differently.
But you're giving an opportunity. That's what I hear from it is you are first going, you tell me what's going on for you, and then that inquiry implies that it's going to be two-way.
Yep.
Even
well, it's also going to be less judgy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you start with heading off early.
Yeah.
I
don't actually do that.
No, but it's like when, managers would, another early day. Like it's so easy to have a joke on it, but you're sending a message every single time.
Yeah, I think that joke or that sarcasm, right, is sometimes where the hurt can lie for people because then they start to, if it happens frequently, they start to get a
Now, if there's really good trust and they know that, for example, sometimes you're there till midnight and sometimes you go home early. And actually, that's another thing I would say, by the way, is sharing stories as a leader, sharing stories of your own, what you do as well, of when you've made mistakes, for example, and sharing stories of sometimes you need to go home early to do some family stuff. Yeah. So by telling stories about stuff, although for some people it's sharing things they might not do, you're sending messages to other people that you're another human as well. And so that builds trust and connection because with trust, then you can do those jokes. That stuff works fine when you've got, because what happens is with trust, people don't hear the words, they take the meaning. Or that what happens, there's a communication model, which is the idea that when we communicate, we deliver information, so data, and as humans, we want to be efficient. So what we tend to do is leave as much as we can out. Otherwise, you've got to communicate so much. Even an acronym would be an example of that. That when we communicate, we want to be efficient. We deliver information. And in this model, this guy came up with this idea that we deliver information and we leave exformation out. Right?
What does that mean?
What we leave out. So there's information and there's exformation.
Oh, right,
what we leave out, right? Now, we leave that out mostly non-consciously.
Yeah.
We hope then that the other person adds that exformation back in to make it meaningful. So when somebody...
in their own way, in their own context.
They've got no other way to do it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So when you go, or whatever, all these little things we do, that person makes it meaningful for them.
Yeah.
Now, how do we know they're taking it as a joke and not taking it as a subtle dig? What this model says is the more shared context we've got, then the more likely it is the meaning will be correct. So that's what happens in really tight, high trust groups. You've got such shared context that when somebody goes, are you right, Nufty? You can be like, oh, shit, yeah, you're right. But I'm saying from a leadership point of view, without that shared context, it's risky to assume that they're going to make it the same meaning you've got. And that's what happens where you hear somebody who's like, they've been picking on me for 6 months. And you're like, what? Like, what do you...
Yeah, interesting, right?
What do you mean? I've been picking on you. That's where would you get that from?
Yeah.
And they're like, you can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
And
there is nothing you can say that would change that perception.
So I'm saying as a leader is understanding that the more context you've got with somebody, the more confidence you can have that they're making sense. The less context, then the more work you should do to be confident. Like customers would be another example, right? Customers, you meet with a customer and they're like, this is what I want. And we hear it and make it meaningful. Yeah. And then 3 months later,
they go, you need to give my money back because that's not what I asked
Exactly
for,
right.
And it happens to us all the time.
Yeah, right. Because we think, so I'm saying that's an example where you go, hey, that's really cool. I just want to make sure, obviously, we're on the right page. Can you talk me through that a bit more? Yeah. And when they tell a story through, not what does it mean, but talk me through that, tell me about, walk me through what that would look like for you. What does the success look like?
Context.
They will tell more of their story and you get more confident that you're on the same page.
Yeah. I think that's part of curiosity, right? If you're naturally curious, you'll ask the questions to ensure there's congruency and synergy between what they expect and what we can deliver.
But as you get more experienced, your brain automatically goes, I know what that means, because we're trying to be efficient. And in fact, the more experienced you are, the more often you're right. So I ask leaders sometimes, can you tell what somebody's thinking? Can you tell somebody's attitude based on their behaviour?
I think some can.
Well, what I'm going to say is you automatically do.
Yeah.
We judge it, right? That's what humans are designed to do.
But I mean, I'm saying I think it's small. I think some people can do that with great accuracy.
Yeah, yeah. Some people will be...
Experience, right?
Yes, they will use their own experience. So, but I'm saying you do it anyway. That's what that you see a behaviour and you go, that's what it means. Because we're meaning making, right? So somebody is checking their phone or they're coming late. We make it meaningful. And all I'm saying is the less we know them, the less confident you should be it's correct. And so the more a strategy like, hey, I've noticed this. I just want to make sure, I want to make sure I understand what's going on. Talk me through it. It's a deliberate strategy. I should say though that it sounds really great to do this all the time, right? But what stops people doing it? Like why doesn't every leader, why aren't they exercising humble inquiry?
Right? So, isn't it?
Well, what do you thought? Why doesn't every leader practice humble inquiry and go, I just want to make sure we got that. Talk me through that. Or
I think there's many things attached to that, right? I think it's previous experience, influence. Yeah. I think it's societal. I think it's knowledge.
I think we think we know because we're biased to optimism bias. Yep. Convinces us that we're probably right. Also, even in a practical context, if you think about this, somebody's some stuff's going on, and you're like, I should really look into that. But it's like, that's like 2 hours of my life. I'm never going to get
I'm
back.
not doing that.
So I think I just ought to be honest with practical with leaders and go, there are also barriers to this. And nearly always it's time. It can also be technique for some leaders practicing just changing their language. Like it sounds like you had to really think about that change for you.
You sort of asked me what it meant, right? And I don't think I've quantified it in that context before.
Did you notice it freaked them out for a little bit?
I think people were aware of it, and they go, "Are you okay?"
Right. Okay. Cool.
It's like, I don't get it.
So this is what'll happen when I'm talking to leaders. Yeah. I'm like, here's an example of a leadership, and it's like I'd say it's just in toolkit. It's like in the jacket you carry around. You pull out different tools, but I'm like, when you pull this tool out, it'll freak them out for a while because they're so used to you being a certain way, which is a great insight into how have I been teaching them. Yeah. This is all priming. That's the psychological process is we prime them all the time with our questioning and our focus. It's like I say to leaders, you want to be careful about the first question you ask a group every day. Yeah. So in a project, like in a team like this, the risk is that you're asking about budget every day.
Well, it's probably more than that, right? It's what's your first interactions with everybody. Yeah. First thing at the start of the day.
Yeah. I'm saying it's what you ask about. Yeah. Because you'll be priming them as to this is what I think is most important. Yeah. So in a project team, like in an engineering business, nearly all the time the first question will be about program or or schedule, right? So there's nothing.
I have this joke, right?
Okay, yeah.
I always say to people, what happens when you put 3 engineers in one room? Nothing.
No. Engineers are real people too, all right? I'd like to say to my engineering clients, you're real people.
Yeah. No, look, I love all engineers, but they're very focused on the 100%. It's got to be perfect, right? And
and that is another thing we're talking about not being 100.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm saying here, like when the group out there is making trade-offs, when they're like, so how do they make a trade-off between customer service and their KPIs? Like, this is how we lead to unethical behaviour at banks, right? Banks do unethical things to sign up customers and make the KPIs look good. So on the surface of it, it's like that does not seem to meet the bank's values, right?
Especially their advertising campaigns.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You get the double speak, but those workers were primed that was in fact the right behaviour. And then the leadership challenge is to, of course, you're going to go, well, that was wrong. The leadership challenge is to go, isn't that interesting? I wonder how we accidentally taught them that was the right thing to do. That's the learning, is to go, how did we accidentally tell them that the right thing to do was not to raise that with me? To actually to not tell the customer that when you should have. And the clue will nearly always be in how they're being either really visibly rewarded or managed or whatever, or subtly. So like the first question every day is how's program or how's budget? Workers hear that, and when they've got to make a critical trade-off, it doesn't drive it, but it influences it psychologically. So and there's a way to test this. There's a way I tell, again, like leadership groups, is if you've got a group you regularly go to every morning, go in there and say, hey team, how you doing? Just be casual, and then don't say anything and see if they pre-answer a question for you. And I've been doing this with safety groups. So the classic safety thing, I spoke to somebody last week and she said she went out, she tested it, she went out and hung out with the team, and it took like 2 minutes, and eventually they went, anyway, we've got the paperwork for you.
Right.
Or like a project team where somebody's like, they can't handle the tension. They expect you to answer the question, ask them. So they're like, anyway, program's looking good this morning.
Yeah.
And as a leader, the trick's to go, I didn't ask that. I wonder. So
I wonder why they said that.
Well, you've been priming them. That's what you've been teaching them.
Yeah.
You're going to be interested in. And it is true. Like what interests my manager fascinates me.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
And so if what I think my manager is most interested in is a customer metric, then I'll do whatever. Well, we've talked about this, right? That if you...
Yeah, I used to frame it like, so what would you guys like to talk about? And then I'd go, and then say the name, and then bang, where their mind's at and what's important.
So you want to, I think that's a really cool idea of, again, it's like a toolkit. What's my agenda first thing in the morning with the team? Do I really need to know what the numbers are looking like? Or is my agenda to touch base with the team and see where they're at? Hey team, how's everybody doing? What's going on? Anything happening? Any big issues? Anything cool? You're priming them with those types of questions that you're interested in the unusual stuff. Because that's actually like, if it's business as usual, get on with it, right? What you really want to know as a leader is, do you need my help right now?
So before we wrap things up, just wanted to, and look, we might do a part 2 to this because I think we need to talk about framework.
Yeah,
how do you execute against it and what type of framework, right? But that's a big conversation, so we might leave that for next time. Cool. So if I was to ask you 3 things, like what are 3 things people could consider to improve the leaders in their business, right? Or even improve leadership for themselves?
Yeah, I think I reflect on the conversation around that that picking up that toolkit of that humble inquiry is kind of the way to, but being curious and adding that to your
curiosity,
and sometimes that it's a strategy. It's not like trying to say, it doesn't have to be a personality thing, but you've got to be curious. It's actually going, if you apply curiosity at certain times, you'll get better results at times. I think being clearer then around the focus on, so the way I frame it is I go, how many risk decisions are being made in the business every day? Like decisions under uncertainty.
So clarity.
Well, it's a framing question, I say, is think about that. There's lots of risk decisions. And then as leaders, how confident are you they're being made in the right way? So again, I'm really trying to frame it as, holy shit, there's lots of decisions being made, and that it's about confidence as a leader. So sit within that and go, how confident am I they're going to choose customers over profit today, or whatever that you want it to be. But still that sort of, what are they thinking, and then how are they making risk decisions. And then I think there's some stuff around some technique, so questioning technique, like moving towards engaging in this storytelling response. Questions like, talk me through, tell me about, walk me through, rather than why, what, how. Yeah.
So when we talk about like AI, right? Like we're heavily in AI in this company. Like we're using GPT, so we're setting up our own verticals, our own, data sets, and basically everyone in the business is using it.
Yep.
And I mean everybody.
Right.
All the way from general managers to sales managers to course developers, right? Programmers and stuff like that. So when I think about that, I think about, okay, so what does leadership look like in the future, right?
Yep.
And can leaders execute against that? This is another conversation. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent.
Okay. Against AI or against your expectations?
No, against the changing development of what organizations will look like in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it is going to change. And that old draconian way of executing against leadership, when leaders say, as I just said before, leadership's all about good communication.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. Is it really? So now it's about knowledge, understanding how to frame out a company in the new, what they call the gig economy, right?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be influence, and people are going to be worried about their jobs.
Yeah.
And then how do you manage that? How do you communicate to them? And how do you balance that in the universe of your employees, right?
Yeah.
To make sure they feel secure and safe. Because I think a lot of people are worried about their jobs right now.
Yeah.
Globally, not just here. But,
yeah.
So that's a bit of I've gone off on a tangent.
No, that's right.
Sorry about that.
Well, and the bit, without going into a whole other thing, is I just, because my sort of bias is to come back to meaning and shared meaning is, well, we can say leadership's about communication, but I'll be like, what do you mean by communication? And that'll nearly always then, well, do we mean telling or teaching or coaching or mentoring or, if it's about knowledge, that's okay, but whose knowledge and what knowledge is, and that's the level of, to be really honest, like it's so easy to sort of go, we come right back to the beginning of the conversation, right? What's leadership about? We hear, because we want things to be simple, we come up with simple, with aphorisms, with leadership's about this, like culture's the way we do things. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's way too complex. It's way more complex than that, So leadership's about communication. Well, that sounds simple and it sounds right, but it's not complex enough. Because in the end, it's still about people. You can't, there's a point where, and it turns out people are complex and weird and different. So I think that's one of the
unfortunate.
Things. Yeah, but welcome as well, because if we went to innovate, we need people to be able to go, wait, I've seen this, or push back, or that in that space is innovation and frustration, and that's the paradox of. And I think that's at some point leadership has to be about that, but that's tricky. It's more. And sitting with that.
This conversation could go on for like 2 hours.
Yeah,
Can you get a bottle of whiskey? I'll have mine on the rocks, straight. Thanks.
I'll have can I go a beer? I'll probably go a beer first and then a whiskey chase.
Cool. Well, hey, we I think we need to leave it there.
Yeah.
Rory's looking at me going,
yeah, stop.
You guys have been talking for too long.
Yeah.
Hey, so thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for the invite, man. It's great to catch
there's
up
one thing
again.
I do want to say, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys realise,
What?
but Dave's got a Batman book.
Well, I used to, so one of the cool
things. It looks like a notepad, right?
It is my notepad.
There's a lot of
It's
stuff.
got my little mind maps in there and stuff like that. I used to let my kids.
It's also number one. You can see
Yeah,
that.
I'm not, I will say I'm not, as I don't want to pretend I'm that much into it, but my kids, I used to let my kids choose my notebooks.
Sure.
Well, they're 23 and 17 now, so
okay, well, great.
I've grown out of it. But, we'd be shopping and I'm like, what notebook should I get? And so it was a way to remember my kids a bit. And it's also, you know what, it's an interesting conversation starter when you sit down with a CEO and you put your book out and they're like, it's my way of going, I'm not too serious. So if you want to be...
But I'm still going to charge you a lot of money for this.
It's the last 30 years of my life, right?
No, I get it. Hey, so where can people find you if they were to look for your consultancy?
LinkedIn, Dave Whitefield, and the businit's Semiosphere which is a weird name, I know, but it's about cultural. Yeah, well, semiotics is the meaning of signs and symbols.
Yep.
And it's got a lot of cultural stuff.
Yeah.
And
very difficult to pronounce.
I know. The semiosphere is the fact that everything is, there's signs and symbols and language and artifact all around us. And so the cultural world is kind of that symbolic world all around us. So, it's an interesting term. Also, when you're trying to find a business name, you need you need the website,
Domain.
you need the business. You end up, it's and all the culture guy is gone. So
the culture guy. Hey, I'm the culture guy.
That's also a bit wanky, right? The culture guy.
A little bit. I know what you mean though, because we are going to rebrand the company from Polymath, and it probably took about 2 months just to find a domain name.
I remember when you were branding to Polymath.
Yeah.
So,
there you go. It's been a year. Okay, great. Well, hey, I appreciate it, man. It was good to hang out. And let's do a part 2.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Great.
Thanks.
Look, I hope you found something that you liked or that you think may work for your business. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. We try to push out as much content and good content as we can. We really appreciate you watching, and look forward to speaking to you next time.